Welcome back to Midnight Narratives, the place where we dive into the stories that shake communities, stories that don't line up neatly, and stories where the silence is often louder than the words we're given. Tonight, we're looking at the most overlooked figure in the Porepunkah shootings, the third officer. Two names have been plastered across the headlines, honoured in memorials. Detective leading Senior Constable Neil Thompson and Senior Constable Vadim Dewart. Their lives and sacrifices are now public record, but the third officer, the one who lived, remains a mystery. Who is he? Why hasn't his name been released? Is this just standard privacy, or does the silence hide something more? Here's what we actually know. On August 26th, 10 Victoria police officers moved in on Desi Freeman's remote property in Porepunkah. Their target was not Freeman's political views, though those views would soon dominate headlines. It was a search warrant. When officers entered, Freeman opened fire. Thompson and Dewart fell almost immediately. The third officer was struck in the leg, collapsing to the ground. Somehow, he survived the chaos, received emergency care, and was airlifted to Melbourne. After surgery, police announced he was stable, expected to recover. And that's where the story ends. For him anyway. No name, no age, no hometown, nothing. Just the third officer. So why the blackout? The official explanation is simple: privacy and protection. Police often withhold the identity of surviving officers, particularly if they are still active in investigations or if naming them could put their family at risk. This is true. In Australia, especially when sovereign citizen ideology is involved, naming an officer can make them a target for harassment. But here's the issue. When information is withheld in such a high-profile tragedy, it creates a gap, and into that gap flow questions. Conspiracy Thread 1. The undercover angle. Some have speculated the injured officer may not have been just a regular member of the warrant team. What if he had ties to undercover operations? Think about it. If this officer was working across multiple investigations, his identity could compromise other cases. Sovereign citizen networks share information fast, expose his name, and suddenly every arrest he's been involved in becomes suspect. That's one reason to keep him hidden. But others argue that explanation is too neat. After all, we've seen injured undercover officers named before, with caveats. Why is this different? Conspiracy Thread 2. The narrative gap. Another theory is that by naming him, inconsistencies in the raid's story might come to light. 10 officers went in, 2 died, 1 injured. But how exactly did it unfold? Where were the others during the gunfire? Did the team underestimate Freeman's preparedness, his weapons, or his willingness to shoot? If the third officer spoke out publicly, he could contradict the official timeline. Did he see something? Did he experience something the authorities don't want shared? The silence here doesn't prove conspiracy, but it fuels it. Conspiracy Thread 3. Survivor's silence. There's also the psychological side. Survivors of traumatic attacks often relive events differently than the official record. What if this officer's account of those moments raises questions authorities aren't ready to answer? Did Freeman appear tipped off? Was there something unusual about the way the raid began? And here's the chilling thought. Sometimes silence isn't just for the survivor's sake. Sometimes it's because their version of the truth might not match the story the public is meant to hear. Conspiracy Thread 4. The bigger picture. And step back for a moment. Freeman wasn't just a random man in the hills. He identified as a sovereign citizen, part of a movement that openly rejects police and government authority. In recent years, intelligence agencies have warned of these networks growing in Australia. Could the secrecy around the third officer be connected to that bigger battle? Perhaps protecting him isn't just about privacy, it's about containing the narrative. Because if the public sees cracks in the official version, if conspiracy grows unchecked, it strengthens Freeman's ideological followers. So by hiding the survivor, authorities avoid feeding the beast. But ironically, the silence itself becomes food for conspiracy. What the silence means. Here's the real question. Why does this matter? Because when names are withheld, the public fills the silence with suspicion. Maybe it's all innocent. Maybe this officer is just a man with a family who deserves peace, privacy, and healing. But maybe, just maybe, the story of what happened on that property isn't as clean as it's been told. Was the third officer simply unlucky, caught in the line of fire and lucky to escape alive? Or does his hidden identity mean he was more important, more connected than the public has been led to believe? So what do you think? Is the third officer unnamed because of something simple, respect, privacy protection? Or is there a deeper story, one we're not being told, one that might change how we see the entire Freeman shooting? Let me know in the comments. Debate this one hard, because the truth could be anywhere between the lines we've been fed and the silence that still surrounds this man. If you enjoyed this dive into the shadows, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another Midnight Narratives. Because here, the silence is often the loudest part of the story.